Talking to myself again.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters. Happy bonfire night. It's me, Steve Wraith, and as usual, every week we're joined by Supermac, Malcolm MacDonald and John Gibson. Good evening, lads.
Good evening, Steve.
Hi, guys.
John.
Good to see you guys in there. We are sponsored. We have got a new sponsor, John, now. I'm not sure if you can move your head up a little bit. Can you get your head in that helmet, John? Newworkwear.com, specialist in the supply and branding of clothing for the workplace. That's it, John. You're in.
Yes, get in.
John's a fully fledged member of YMCA now, John. And
Thanks very much.
Your lass will be asking you to do the dance when you finish the show tonight, mate.
Good to have you on.
Good to have you on, and as always, we've got plenty to talk about with regards to Newcastle United over the next hour. We're going to start off with looking back at last weekend's game. It seems like donkey's years ago now, but it was a good result, Malcolm. Newcastle beating obviously Everton. It has to be said, Everton were missing a few players, but listen, 3 points is 3 points, and it was a good win.
Yes, it was not only a good win, I thought it was a really good performance as well. And for a very long time, I've been clamouring for Steve Bruce to stop allowing the back four to keep dropping off in the way that they do. And I felt that for once they were pushing up. And doesn't it make a difference because the midfield gets in touch with the forwards then, rather than there being a huge gap. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I just took in. I was in a quite a large group of people, and they were all so impressed. And you think, now come on, don't revert back to the way that you have been playing. Keep it like this, because it must be so enjoyable for those players to play in, as opposed to the way that they have been playing previously.
Yeah, John, it was obviously, a great win, much needed win, took us into 10th place in the league. And, Steve Bruce hasn't had such a bad start to the season, has he?
I mean, yes, I've been saying that. If you look, Steve Bruce has asked after the game to get some credit for what he's achieved or what he's done. And I think if you look at substance rather than style, then you have to give them some credit because they're 10th top when they could have been down the bottom. I think what has sickened people has been the way we've got the points and the fact that, when you look at Spurs 1-1.
John, we seem to be having a little bit of...
Oh.
Lost you, lad.
Yeah, it's not you that's got the problem, John. I think it's Steve.
It's Steve that's got the problem. I think we are here, but he isn't.
There must have been a temperature drop in Dunstan.
I think it's having
solid.
Having beaten Everton, he's in shock. I think that's what it is.
I think so. Yes.
Are you going to talk to us, Steve?
Yeah, I suppose he's going to have to reboot. But so yeah, it was lovely to watch on over the weekend, wasn't it? That game.
I think it was. I mean, one of the things that bothered me, I think we didn't really get going to the second half, Mal. The second half, we sort of took off and got away. There he is. Are you back, young Stephen?
God knows what happened there. But well done, lads. I knew you would keep it going. It was like the Titanic.
Yeah,
it was. Just as you announced me as the problem, you dried up. So there we go. Anyway, what we were saying about Everton, I mean, Brucey has wanted people to pat him on the back. I can understand that. And if we go for substance rather than style, we do that because we're 10th and comfortably so, etc., etc. It's just performances have been bad. As Mal said, the performance was significantly better, though I do feel we really had to wait till the second half before it ignited. Really, the first half, no, was quite dour. A terrific result in the end. As you mentioned, Steve, Everton were shockingly poor. If you take Rich Arlison out of their side, everybody talks about the centre forward that scores all the goals, of course, because centre forwards are the blue-eyed boys. But if you take Rich Arlison out the side, they have never won a game when he hasn't played.
Yeah.
Isn't that absolutely staggering? And that record stood at Newcastle, of course.
Yeah,
and
one
James
man
Rodriguez. Yeah, James Rodriguez was out as well, who was the Colombian, the creator, who was at Real Madrid. So yes, I thought Everton looked the way we had looked, Malcolm, on our bad days. On our doer days. Everton looked like us.
Maybe it's something that's catching.
Well, I'm hoping catches Southampton this weekend.
Yeah,
that'll do for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can only be positive and give them credit where credit's due. It was a very, very good result. 2-1 looks closer than it was because they scored it to death, and really at 2-0, I think that would have been a fair reaction to the game.
Yeah.
Obviously pleased with Wilson, who got 2 goals, and he's got 6 out of 7, which is absolutely fabulous. I know we say that half of those 6 goals are from the penalty spot, that he's only got 3 from actual play, but he had pressure penalties. If you think of the penalty at Spurs, you can't have a bigger pressure penalty in that. 97th minute, it can get you a point when you could have lost 7. And then even against Everton, his penalty, remember there was a long time before he took it with a VAR check before he was allowed to take the penalty. And of course, he got in a verbal with the centre half, pushed the ball in his stomach, got booked. But it was all to unnerve him, and he didn't unnerve. So credit where it's due. Almiron, by the way, worked his socks off. Terrific work rate. Maximum didn't play as well as he can. He's had 2 poor games since playing in the 10 role. But with his type of player, he'll get those games. I mean, the flair player often has a poor day, and I think that was a poor day. But for us to win, despite him having a poor day, that's a good result.
Yeah, and what one player who hasn't been mentioned is Sean Longstaff. I thought he did very, very well indeed. And he looked all the time to get forward, get in support of Wilson, and and I just feel that there's a freedom to Longstaff without John Joe Shelby in the side. I think John Joe Shelby was a limiter of young players around him, and without Shelby, those kids, they go and find their heads, and the same with Murphy. I thought he did terrific. He's having a good little spell, and it begs the question: why was he loaned out? What was all that about? He loaned out for 2 years, and he comes back and starts showing form like that.
The big surprise, of course, was, and it dispels the myth that has been mentioned on this show before, was that Joe Linton didn't get on, Mal.
Brucey obviously got that telegram you sent him, Malcolm. I think Brucey got the telegram.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show then that I'm wrong, that it isn't in his contract that he must appear, because I really couldn't think of any other reason why. He just kept being put on the side, even when he was a sub, that they'd bring him on for the last 15 when he wasn't needed. And so You know, I saw one of the viewers' comments. It was a question, and they were asking which player at Newcastle would you put a rocket up the backside of? And well, of course, with me it would be Joe Linton, except the rocket would be going to the moon.
But if it was Malcolm, if it was Joe Linton, the rocket would miss the moon.
Yes. Oh, maybe it just keep going onto Uranus.
Brilliant. We've got a question asked there by Nathan, who obviously does our worldwide show. He was just saying, what did you think of Almiron, John? You know, he seemed to be getting a lot of plaudits. Nathan wasn't as impressed as other people.
He's a difficult one, Almiron, because I mean, he always gives you 100%, the old business of 110%, if that was possible. He always gives you that. He grafts his socks off. The harsh thing you've got to say about Almiron, which fans don't like to hear, is that unquestionably what makes him not a top player is his goals record. If you play anywhere on the offensive side of the field and you score 40 goals, 4 goals in 50 appearances virtually, your goals per game isn't good. Remember the first half of the season when he come, he never scored. Then he got 4 league goals last season and he hasn't scored this. A lot of people would say when he's got to run from his own penalty area to their penalty area every game, no wonder he doesn't score. But what he does, he puts in his shift for you. He works hard. And under the way Bruce plays now, and it worries me because it's not getting the best out of Almiron, but he does as much good work going back towards his own goal as he does running towards their goal. And I think that's one of the reasons, you know, why Bruce likes Sam Maximum to play 10, because he likes Almiron out wide in front of Lewis, the kid at left back, because he is terrific going forward. He can get caught out defensively, but Almiron's a safeguard in front of him, because Almiron will come back and do a lot of work to help get the kid out of a hole. If you put San Maximum there, which I think, if we remember, Malcolm, he played there early on until he was injured against Burnley and give away a penalty when he tried to track back Maximum.
Right.
And then he doesn't track back the rest of the time. So I think that Bruce likes the insurance of Almiron in front of the kid. For me, works hard, shows a terrific spirit, gets the ball upfield very, very quickly because he's so pacey. But I can't get away from the fact I would like him to have a better goals per game record than he's got.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. Question for both of you. It's been directed to Malcolm, but he says, as an ex-striker, Mal, do you think Wilson would play better with a strike partner or continue on his own up top? And there was also a question about Dwight Gale, obviously on the fitness trail, you know, trying to get back to fitness and get back into the team. He'd hit a little rich vein of form before he got injured. You know, what would you feel about playing those two up front?
Sorry,
would you play Gale and Wilson together if Gale was fit?
Yeah, no trouble at all. Once Gale's fit, I wouldn't have any problem playing them together. Albeit, Wilson's he's a versatile player, and I think you could play him off Carroll. And then you could sort of switch it around a bit. And play Gale off of Wilson. He's got an awful lot going for him as Wilson, and so I think he offers an awful lot of options. And he's gonna. I think he's just one of those real naturals. He is gonna score no matter what. He has impeccable timing. Just getting there, and it's half an inch in front of the defender, and that's all he needs. You only need that toe poke. You just need that touch. You just need to get your head just that fraction ahead, to steer the ball goalwards. And he's an expert at doing that. So I think you can play whoever with him, and he'll just change his game slightly, but he'll always keep going in the box just to get that half an inch ahead of the defender. Always.
Yep. What about you, John? Would you like to see those two paired together? Wilson certainly, as you've already mentioned, hit the ground running. Would you pair those two together once Dwight Gale was fit?
Yes, I would. When Dwight Gale's ready, because Dwight Gale's movement, I think he can play Carroll in certain games because he will be a battering ram up front, and Wilson might be able to eat off him. What he doesn't give you, and what he stereotypes a game, is that his ability to get round the park is worse than Shelby's. Carroll, he just hasn't got the legs. He never was that quick a runner around the park, but he now really trundles on occasions. He hasn't got the legs to get round the park, and so he's going to limit things that way. And he's almost like a magnet, like Shelby's a magnet for playing 60-yard balls standing on the centre half's toes. I think with Carroll, he is a magnet that Newcastle go back to front on the long ball, which doesn't always hit him anyway. In any case, the rest of the team seem to think if you've got Carroll, you're going to just whack it from front to back and hope something happens. You can pick your games, maybe such as Burnley, when they're physical side, to put somebody in that's going to terrify them physically like Carroll. But I would be much happier with Wilson playing with Dwight Gale up front when Gale's fit. I think Bushy quite likes the idea of a lone centre forward and a number 10 behind him buzzing and getting round him, and that would probably be Almiron or Maximum, who he seems to want to stick with. Taking his quotes at the press conference today, I think Bushy is seeing Maximum in the long term as being a 10 because he's more involved in the game. I'm not so certain he is. I prefer him out wide where he can get the ball in space and find some space around it and run it to fullback. I think the way Bruce is talking, he likes a 10 with the option to go left or right. He has had two very mediocre games, I think, in the last two games when Newcastle got 4 points out of 6. But I think he could be used in that position. But yeah, like Malcolm, I would like to see Dwight Gale given a chance to play up top with Wilson. I think they're clever in their mind. And I think if once they really got an understanding, they could make things happen.
Would you drop him, Malcolm? Would you drop ASM? He seems a bit jaded to me. And one of the comments from Jonathan Ward said that when Fraser came on, he changed the game, which I would probably have to agree with. But Fraser's been itching for a start, and the fact that he's played so well, and with Wilson, it would make sense to give him a run in the team.
Yeah, quite possibly. But I think we've got to remember that St. Maximin, he's got extraordinary ability. And he can mesmerize opposing defenses. I just think that with somebody like him, what they need to do is be slightly channeled so that they haven't got too many options. Because when he's out wide, he uses his skills tremendously. When he comes inside, because he's got a lot of options, he runs a bit like a headless chicken. You don't see him actually taking people on as he does out wide. And I think that by playing him inside, I think it's wasting his abilities and his talents. I really do. When he's out wide, he can still cut in, but once he cuts in, he's going into the penalty area. And so things open up for him then in the important space. But it's when he's sort of running from the halfway line, to me, he just gets a little befuddled with all the opportunities, the spaces and what have you that are in front. And of course, He's got defenders left and right of him, which he never has when he's on the wing, because he's got the line there. He knows exactly where the defenders are to run at and take on.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think it's an interesting point, because I think one of the problems, boys, that Steve Bruce is going to have in the short term, long term, is shoehorning into the same side Almiron, San Maximum, and Fraser. And I think he's proved that so far that it is a problem, because at the beginning of the season, if you remember, Almiron couldn't get in the side. He didn't play game after game in the league, only in the League Cup at the start. Fraser hasn't started regularly yet, and there was an excuse that he wasn't match fit, having had the layoff from Bournemouth, etc., etc. But there's going to come a time when Fraser, having joined the club, expects to start. Almiron's work rate will make him expect to start. He's terrified of dropping permanently San Maximum, and I can totally understand that, because he's the most gifted guy. So you've got to shoehorn them three in with Wilson, and that's going to be interesting. He can do left and right out wide, but then Murphy might have to go. It's going to be interesting to see how he gets Fraser, Almiron, and San Maximum in the same side, because at some time that's going to have to happen.
Right. Okay, John, I have a question for you then.
Good.
Which of the three do you give preference to on positioning?
That's a terrific question. Which of the three I would give preference to on making certain the team first would be San Maximum, because I believe that his talent is even great. His talent is even greater than the other, than Almiron or Fraser, and I think he does the unpredictable thing in a predictable side, because we are predictable. So yes. I would have to get San Maximum in first. The point is where, and I'm not certain. Like you said, Malcolm, I agree with you. I'm not certain he's a 10, but I would have to get him in first, and then look at where I can get Almiron and Fraser in. And if they're going to be in, probably the poor lad that would suffer would be Murphy.
Possibly.
It's an interesting one.
Isn't it nice for Steve Bruce to have that kind of a problem rather than the other problems that he's had to face?
Yeah, 100%. Whoever thought we'd all be sitting here talking about dropping St. Maximin? It's it is a strange time to be a Newcastle fan. Would you like the listeners and viewers to choose the direction the show goes in sometimes? And Raymondo and John Mitchison have both asked the same question, Malcolm. Did you see the big match revisited on TV last week with Brian Moore? Spurs versus Newcastle, when Bell, the goalkeeper, made his debut against Spurs away and threw the ball into his own net. Do you both remember that game, Malcolm? For you first.
Yeah. I'll tell you a little story.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was walking my dog down by the quay, and a guy came up to me. And he said, hello. He said, I bet you don't remember me. And I looked at him. I said, no, I'm afraid I don't. He said, well, I made my debut playing in goal for Newcastle against Tottenham.
Oh.
Belly. Yeah. So I saw him. Yes, he looked ever so well, and in good form and good health. So he survived to live and tell the tale.
Oh, what a coincidence. I mean, do you remember that one, John?
It's the thing sticks out in my mind that's what happened with Belly. Yes. I tend not to try to dwell on those games because there's too many of them to remember, everything from Hereford up, down and sideways. I try to remember the good ones, the outstanding ones, because there's so few of them that it's very easy to remember them, and I feel much better afterwards. And if I'm going to go into lockdown, I don't want to be cutting my throat on the first day of lockdown. You know what I mean?
But the good news for those people who do like to look back on yesteryear is John and I are going to pre-record a very special show where John's going to give us his memories of that wonderful Fairs Cup run, something which unfortunately I am too young to remember, but I've seen all the footage, I've watched the final, but John and I are going to record that, and that'll be going up at the weekend. So I'm looking forward to speaking to John about that, because John, as well as being a good friend of mine, is such a mine of information about Newcastle United and boxing, it has to be said, two things which are really close to my heart. And John's kindly agreed to spend another hour with me having a chat about that. So that'll be going up at the weekend, and I'm looking forward to doing that. Let's talk a little bit about the England squad, lads, because there is a Newcastle connection, as in, you know, a lot of people were expecting either Callum Wilson or Darlow to get picked up by Gareth Southgate, but unfortunately neither of them made the cut. Goalkeepers obviously ended up being Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford and Nick Pope. So same old there. And the forwards that were chosen were, again, very, very similar. Tammy Abraham, Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, Raheem Sterling and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So, Malcolm, I suppose the question I want to ask you is, you know, did either of them deserve a call-up?
Well, if you look at the stats, the one who is truly outstanding is Carl Darlow at the moment. He is way at the top and has a huge lead on crucial saves, and he has been doing absolutely magnificently. And I do feel that rapidly he's improved in so many aspects of goalkeeping, his distribution, his coming for crosses. I think he's improved dramatically on the confident manner in which he comes off his line, even out of the 6-yard box, and collects the ball. So I think that the really outstanding one is Darlow, and there's one or two keepers who have been having dodgy times in the Premiership just recently, and Darlow is quite the opposite. With regards to Wilson, I really think he has got one hell of an uphill struggle. In my time, when I played for England, and that was over 4 years, I can recall the number of forwards in the squad over those 4 years totaled over 30. Yeah. Now, and then about 10 or 12 years ago, there were about 5 forwards in the whole of England who were English. Only 5. But all of a sudden, there's been a whole host of forwards coming through, and you look at that list on the team on the squad list there, and you look just at the forwards and you think, my word, that's a lot of talent in there. And I don't envy the task of Wilson, because looking at that, he must be thinking, blimey, it's some job to try and break in into that lot. There's a lot of talent there, and I think we're blessed at the moment in this country. We seem to be blessed with forwards. If they were to need an out-and-out goal scorer, I think if maybe if the captain and Tottenham centre forward, if he weren't there, I think I would look at Wilson and say, right, yes, you go in. But it would always be as a sort of sub for the main goal scorer.
What about you, John? What was your take on that today?
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, the interesting thing for me, Steve, and the staggering thing, is at the end of last season, who would have even dreamed that a couple of months later we would be talking about the Newcastle goalkeeper and the Newcastle centre forward having a chance to play for England when the Newcastle goalkeeper was Dubrovka and Darlow hadn't played a Premier League game for 2 years and we hadn't signed Callum Wilson. So who would have thought in the last game of last season, we would be saying half a dozen games into this season that the Newcastle goalkeeper and the Newcastle centre forward might be considered by England. Absolutely staggering. The two things I would like to say is, like Malcolm, Darlow's figures have been unbelievable. And it amazes me because I didn't realise, having only glimpsed him really in the Cups, I didn't realise that he could be as consistent as that. He's excelled himself. What I found staggering today in Southgate's reasoning for not picking these two guys, I found it absolutely staggering that he said there's nobody pushing Pickford through their performances for their clubs. Pickford has dropped so many clangers. He didn't even play Newcastle United in the last game. He didn't even play for Everton at Newcastle in the last game. And Pope, if you remember, when we beat Burnley, Pope had a nightmare. St James's Park, lads, when we played Burnley, Pope, their goalkeeper, had a nightmare. So, I'm not so certain that what he's got there is as great as he's saying. And Henderson, of course, has found it difficult to get in the Manchester United side because of De Gea. I understand where Malcolm's coming from up front because there is a range of talent, which you saw on the screen there. And you've also got to add, Malcolm, and this is significant when we come on to reviewing tomorrow night, that normally Danny Ings would be in that array of talent as well in the England striker squad because but for injury that ruled him out, else he would have been in. I think that Wilson, it's early doors. He's got 6 goals and 7. His form's lovely. Let us enjoy him. England will come along if he keeps going like that. But at the moment, I care more about Newcastle United than England. And if Darlow plays great for us and Wilson plays great for us, then Southgate can make his own arrangements. Although for the kids themselves, I'd be pleased if they got in, obviously.
Is there a bit of bias, Malcolm, do you think, against Newcastle players getting in the team?
Quite possibly. I think I faced bias when I was playing, and particularly with Dom Revie, and then later the West Ham manager, he took the job on, and I just got the overwhelming impression because he never once called me into the squad, and I just thought I am not his type of player. He wants a Jeff Hurst type, and sort of Mick Shannon and those kind of players, but somebody who just goes and sniffs out goals, like myself. I just had the feeling that it wasn't good enough, and yet I was, at the time, I was for I think 4 years running, I was the top goal scorer in the First Division, and pretty much ignored from the England squad.
Yeah.
So you sometimes you just have to swallow it and accept that you're just not the England manager's cup of tea. Yeah,
that's fair enough. John, quite a bit going on with fans and how this pandemic's affecting them. Pay-per-view talks about the Premier League potentially scrapping the charge after this weekend's games. That's surely a good thing.
Without a shadow of doubt, Steve, I'm led to believe that once we get into the international break, when we return from the international break, the pay-per-view will not exist. Amazingly, the Premier League are staggered at the fan reaction to that. I'm staggered that they didn't realise what the reaction of the fans would be. Absolute nonsense. And yes, I'm told it will be formally announced next week that all this is finished with, is scrapped and is done. It'll be interesting to see during the lockdown how they replace that. Will they show, and as far as Steve, this hasn't been suggested yet, will they revert back to what they did initially, which is show every game on full telly for nothing, with staggered kickoffs over Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, so that fans can still see the games? Because we talk in this lockdown, we've got it for a month for certain, but we all think it longer. And the furloughing of people at work is now being announced today, is going through to March, which gives you a great indication that perhaps on December the 2nd, we won't completely be out of the lockdown. So they've got to look after the fans in the meantime. How they're going to do it? Are they going to revert to what they used to do? I hope so. But I'm delighted that the pay-per-view's gone, because that has been an unmitigated disaster as a PR exercise. Absolute disaster.
Hasn't it just? But I think it's been brilliantly done by supporters, where they have said, no, we're not going to pay it, but then they put all the same amounts of money into charity, and I think it was
into the food banks in the main.
Yes, into the food banks,
which has been absolutely fabulous, Malcolm.
Right. But,
absolutely fabulous.
But here again, somebody is going to blame the Premier League for taking all the money away from the food banks by giving free football again.
Yeah. You're right, but we'll still manage to make we'll still be making money for the food bank on this show. We've managed to make some great money off the t-shirts, which have been provided by John at qtechshop.co.uk. He's been providing some one-off t-shirts. First t-shirt raised 150 quid. The second one actually raised 170 because there was 3 people who actually wanted to leave their money in after they'd bid for it. So already we've made nearly 310 quid for the food bank in the last 2 weeks, and we'll be putting another t-shirt up this week. So as I say, big thanks to John from qtechshop.co.uk. Big friend of the show and a big sponsor, and as always, a shout out to the main sponsor, newworkwear.com, specialists in the supply and branding of clothing for the workplace. So thanks to those guys. Fans battling with Newcastle's takeover. Malcolm has been back in the headlines as well. The Newcastle Consortium supporters obviously received a reply finally from the Premier League, and yeah, that battle rumbles on in the background. And interesting quote today from the PIF side of things, which of course has been rather silent since the takeover stalled, but addressing the saga for the first time, Prince Abdul Aziz said, "It's a shame it didn't go through, but we say here that there's always a reason for things happening or not, and we look forward to better opportunities, hopefully in the future." Of course, there was disappointment that the deal did not go through. I'm not really sure what went wrong or what the discussions were about, but when he was asked if there was a potential for the resurrection of the deal, he said he didn't know what the PIS plans were, but if there's an opportunity, they would definitely think about it. So that was a very positive, message, I felt, Malcolm.
Yes, yeah. I still think that at the moment hedging their bets.
Yeah.
Personally, I wouldn't like to buy a football club right now, no matter how rich I was, because you're facing a situation where, and you don't know for how long it's going to go on, whether it's going to be weeks, months, even years, of having an empty stadium. For one, the television people they're going to be hauling the monies down, and so I somehow think that they may see the nonsense with the Premier League as a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. Okay, well, John, your take on it.
Well, Malcolm certainly cheered me up there that we're going to be stuck with Mike Ashley perhaps for years because of the coronavirus. Brilliant. But being serious, I know where Mal's coming from on that. We've got to hang on to the hope that a takeover is going to happen, because long term Ashley has not an interest in this club, and when he had an interest in this club, we were still restricted horribly by the way he wanted to run the club. I am very suspicious of this deal being able to be resurrected. I think they're still interested in the background, but the onus is probably on others to be able to make it happen, whether the others are Ashley through the courts, the Newcastle United supporters kicking up. But I think we've got to live with some sort of hope, because it's got to happen in the long term to give us any real future. The future is not after the 13 years we've had with Mike Ashley. There's absolutely no chance of that whatsoever. So we've got to have hope that somebody comes in. If it's not the Saudis, I would like it still to be the Saudis. Yes, it's not dead in the water without a shadow of doubt, but I reckon once you're kicked in the shins 6, 7, 8, and 9 times, you become a little bit cynical, although you always cling to any bit of flotsam that passes you by, that something will come out of it. Hopefully it will, but I'm not going to hold my breath. But I'm going to hold my breath that Malcolm's going to rejoin us at some time. Have we,
yeah, we seem to be having some bonfire night problems tonight, don't we? It seems to be causing a few issues, but hopefully he'll be back. I know Malcolm.
I think what's happening, Steve, is that his dog's gone out to let a few fireworks off, and he's having to go out and get him back in. Remember, the dog appears regularly on this show.
It does, yeah. We've had some incidents. Yeah, we should do a best of NUFC matters with Malcolm's dog. That would be a classic, right? It gives us time to bring in Martin Nesbitt. Martin is obviously one of the regulars on our worldwide shows. Good evening, Martin.
Evening, lads. How are you? Steve, Gibbo, how are you?
Good to see you.
Hi, Martin.
Thanks, mate.
Hi.
How are you, John?
Good to see you.
I'm good, pal.
We asked you to come on tonight, Martin, obviously just to talk through the campaign that we've launched today. NUFC Matters doing a little bit for mental health, and we've launched the Phone a Friend initiative, simply telling Newcastle United fans to try and help somebody that they know. It could be somebody that you haven't spoken to for weeks or months. It could be somebody you've lost a little bit of touch with. It could be a family member who's living on their own. But during this tough period, which we're all going through together, we just thought it would be a good idea to get people to phone a friend. And it costs you the price of a phone call, of course, but pick up the phone. Don't drop a text. Don't send an email. We get quite lazy these days. We want you to pick up the phone and actually physically ring somebody and have a conversation. And I've done it today already. I've rang somebody today who I hadn't spoken to for a while, and they were genuinely delighted to hear from us. And it's nice to be able to do something like that. So we've launched that initiative, Martin. And I know you've had a few issues over lockdown yourself.
I have, mate. Yeah. Unfortunately, about 2 weeks ago, I had somebody very close to me attempt to take their own life. Obviously, it's a shocking thing to happen. Luckily, they're on the mend, and hopefully getting the right help. But I think for me, lockdown, is having a lot of detrimental effects, and I think, in particular for lads, I think talking about mental health is something that is treated like a sacred subject that we don't talk about. It's like there's a bravado there where a man doesn't want to say to his missus or to his partner or, whatever it may be, or to a guy in work or in the locker room of the gym, I'm not feeling great. I've got a few things going on and I'm not feeling the best myself, and just opening up a bit and talking. Now I'm lucky. I've got good family back home in the northeast. I've got family here in just outside of Dublin, and it's a good supportive family that's helped me through. But I've had probably 2 weeks where it's been a struggle for me to comprehend the whys, the ifs, and the what ifs, and everything else. And I'm not the only one. And I said to you last week, Steve, we had a discussion on the phone, and I asked you if I could say a little bit about mental health. And obviously we are where we are now, launching this campaign. And I think it's amazing. I think more lads, it's like testicular cancer. Years and years ago, no fella would have said, Jesus, I've a pain in me balls, for a better word. I need to get checked out. And it's the same with mental health. And I think, if we do nothing else, where people, meet up, where they talk, where they phone a friend, or they chat to the pal next to them in work, or they talk to us on this platform, or even send a message to Gibbo, to the Chronicle, to whatever we need to do. I think people, in particular men, need to be more aware, not be afraid of their feelings. Listen, I'll hold my hand up. I cried 2 weeks ago. I'm not ashamed to say it. It's an emotional thing that you struggle to comprehend. And lockdown is just plowing more and more pressure onto people, from families to abuse in the home, to jobs, to money. And it's a scary, scary time for everyone. So I'm delighted with the launch of the campaign, with the involvement of yourself, Steve, with the NUFC team. Gibbo, I've seen messages coming in. My Twitter has exploded in the last hour since stuff went up. So look, get out there, phone a friend, talk. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Open your heart, open your mouth. You're definitely never alone. And for me, I think, had it not been for this platform, for the guys that we do the match day with, watching the shows, watching you guys, watching, Mitch and Steve Hasty, the match day live, the girls, I think people would have really struggled. And I think we've got this great platform to tell people and get them to open up. And, I would say from my heart to everybody else, I'm there. DMs are there. Get in touch, open up, talk. You are never, ever alone. So don't be afraid to open up.
Yeah, great message, Martin. And as I say, your story and what you went through over the last couple of weeks really touched me. And I've got a little black book of former Newcastle players, and it cost me nothing but me time to organise this. And I asked a few of the Newcastle players to do a video, and that's why we decided to launch the campaign. So some of you might have already seen it. Liam Kennedy launched it in the Gazette today, but we've also stuck it up on the YouTube channel as well, so you can watch it. But for those of you who haven't, here is the Phone a Friend video. And a big thank you to Neil Jackson at Media Arts for knocking that up, and a massive, massive thank you to all the lads who've essentially chipped in and done that from the Newcastle United family, and of course from the boxing world as well. Means a lot that you supported it, and just phone a friend. That's it. Nothing else to do. You don't have to pay any money. You don't have to do anything. Just go and phone somebody if you're feeling down. I didn't have a particularly good day yesterday, I've got to be perfectly honest, but I phoned somebody and I felt a lot better. So Martin, thanks for coming on and sharing your thoughts on that as well, mate.
No worries, Steve. I think the important thing as well, I'd like to just finish up and saying is, obviously we do most of the shows and it's about Newcastle United, but I'd like to get it out there to all fans, be it Sunderland, Borough, Hartlepool, Ferry Hill, Dunstan, Newcastle, Blue Star. Get the word out there, get the retweets going, get the campaign going, and let's see how far we can take it. So everyone that can share it, social media, wherever else, get it out there, get the video out there, and let's start talking about mental health. Phone a friend, and let's help each other.
Martin, great stuff. John, I'm sure you've got something to say about that as well.
Yes, a wonderful, wonderful idea. I'm delighted and humbled to be privileged to be part of the campaign. And we're so right. What Martin's saying is absolutely correct. Going into a lockdown again today, there's a good friend of mine who is a famous face, and often people think that if guys have got fame, that's enough. They must live in this wonderful world of roses and sunlight. And this guy said to me, and I already knew, he said, Gibbo, I'm struggling. We're going into lockdown. please keep in touch with me. Give me a ring. In the past, I've often sent loads of emails and rang him occasionally. It was important for him, and I know what it meant to him to be able to say this to me. But please keep in touch, Gibbo. And I tell you what, I will, and I do know what it's about. And what we've gone through this year is just heightened a problem that's there in any case, but it's been hugely heightened now. What Martin said's all absolutely correct, and I'm delighted to be able to be a part of that and support that. Let's do that. I'm going to be doing that with my mate and with other people as well. But I was just wanting to make the point that even the famous find it tough. They don't live in a world that it can be tough for them as well. Mental illness has no respect for celebrity or anything else. It strikes us all. We have to do as much as we can to help each other through these difficult times. Wonderful, wonderful campaign. Delighted, fellas, to be part of it.
Great stuff. Martin, thanks very much, mate. I'm looking forward to seeing you join us for Match Day Live tomorrow, mate. Take care. Thanks for joining us.
No worries, lads. Thanks, Gibbo. Cheers, lads.
All right.
Take care.
So, John, it looks like it's just you and me. Malcolm's obviously back outside letting his bangers off or playing with his sparklers. So we'll look ahead to...
Excuse me.
We'll have a look ahead. We'll have a look ahead to the game at the weekend. Newcastle United, obviously, away to Southampton. Martin Dubravka, Matt Ritchie, John Joe Shelby still unavailable to play due to injury. As we've already discussed on the show, Dwight Gale is on his way back, but still about 2 or 3 weeks away from regaining match fitness. From the Southampton point of view, Danny Ings is definitely out, which is good news for Newcastle. And Salisu, Smallbone and Gineppo are still currently injured. The Saints have recovered from losing their opening 2 Premier League outings, of course, and they've put together a 5-match unbeaten run. At home this season, they have lost 5-2 to Spurs, but they've beaten West Brom and Everton by 2-0 scoreline. So, John, last game before the first lockdown, we, of course, won at Southampton with a 1-0 win against them, and St Maximin got the goal.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. Something's got to give because, as you rightly said there, Steve, they've been flying recently. And we've got to remember that we are unbeaten away from home this season. That's quite a surprise, isn't it? We normally would talk Newcastle in past years if their home record, but they're unbeaten away this season. So something's got to give, either their record or perhaps ours. Interesting situation. I don't know. Steve Bruce, bless him, doesn't like being called a lucky manager and has bristled over that when he's been accused of those things in recent times. But, I mean, to a certain extent, I think he is lucky. We played Everton, who had been top of the league all the way until they lost a game. And suddenly they come up here without Richarlison and without James Rodriguez, probably their 2 biggest hitters after their centre forward. And they looked a very mundane side as a result. All of a sudden, we're playing Southampton and their big hitter, Danny Ings, is out. They've got no left back because both their left backs are injured. So they've got to get somebody probably playing on the wrong side there. So that sort of thing is always a good start. And it worked against Everton when we won. And obviously having Danny Ings out is a terrific thing for ourselves. It's going to be an interesting match. A full Southampton side in the current form might well have been too much for us. But with Ings out, no left back, and a couple of others out, maybe we've got a real sniff. Interesting, isn't it? Because I said we were unbeaten away, and we know what happened on the opening day when we beat a very poor West Ham side 2-0, but they've done a lot better since. But since then, we've played 2 matches and got 2 1-1 draws when both times, if you like, we got out of jail because at Spurs, it was a 97th minute penalty from Carlson when, as Malcolm and I were discussing earlier in the day, it could have been 7-1 instead of 1-1. And then, of course, the next away game was Wolves, when our first shot on target was 2 minutes from time, direct from a free kick, with Jacob Murphy scoring. So, we've got out of jail twice, but nonetheless, we're unbeaten away. They're on a fabulous run. It's going to be an interesting match. I think we've got a genuine chance because of the form against Everton and because of the injuries to Ings and to a couple of other players with Southampton. So, yeah, we've got a good chance of not losing, which is the first thing that's important.
Yeah, I watched. I turned my television on last Sunday, and the game had already started. Southampton were at Aston Villa, and Southampton were already 4-1 up, and I thought, oh wow, I'm gonna see them just cantering against Aston Villa. And believe it or not, from that moment I started watching, Aston Villa were by far the better side, by far, and Southampton seemed to be lost, and yet they were 4-1 up, and Aston Villa were just piling the pressure on, and I watched Southampton literally crumbling. And they conceded 2 goals, but fortunately for Southampton, it finished 4-3. They got their 3 points from it. But by heavens, if I were Steve Bruce and his staff, watching that second half, I would have said, right, come on, let's get the players out, let's show them this, and let's get them stuck into the middle of the Southampton back line. Because they really did look very ragbaggish at 4-1 up. It's quite astonishing. They should have just been keeping possession and knocking in about. None of that. So I'm not so sure that Southampton have made this run on solid ground. And so I think that Newcastle have got every chance down there if they have looked at what I saw in that second half against Aston Villa.
Prediction, Malcolm, from you?
I'll go 2s each.
2-2, John?
Yeah, I'm going for a third successive away 1-1 draw. I think we'll draw. As I've always said with Malcolm, I'm wondering how we're going to score twice away from home, but I do think it'll be a draw, and I think it'll yet again be 1-1, because it looks as if we're going to go through the rest of the season away from home drawing 1-1. That'll do for me if we get the home wins.
If you're a new visitor to the page, don't forget to like the video, hit the little thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. It is free to subscribe to the channel. So if you're a first-time visitor, welcome, and please come back. Well, we've got a show on every night of the week during these strange times. Again, we will be back as we always are with the 3 amigos tomorrow. These flyers get worse. But people seem to like them. So, yeah, we're back with the 3 amigos at 5:30 tomorrow. And that will be until 7:30. And then we will be going on to Match Day Live and covering the Southampton game. So, looking forward to having everybody. And a quick happy birthday to Derek Fazakli today. Faz, of course, came to Newcastle and was a great servant, especially working with Ozzy and then under Kevin Keegan. Did fantastic things with Kevin. A good servant as well to the club. So a big happy birthday to him. But gents, the clock is beating us. I'll let you go out and get your sparklers and bangers again, Malcolm, whatever you were doing when you kept dropping off. I bet the dog's in its basket with its hand, with its paws and its ears.
I like getting me bangers in a row.
Good stuff,
I've heard the rumour, mate. I've heard the rumour.
Brilliant. Great stuff. All right. Thanks for joining us, lads. Look forward to having you on again next week. Take care.
Have a good week.
See you, lads.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye, boys. Bye.